Good evening, and welcome back to another episode of TSP the Scuttlebutt. Today we're here with my good buddy, partner, Combat Chaps, and
Good evening.
my old partner from back home, Dearborn, Michigan, fellow Legionnaire, fellow past commander of the American Legion, fellow past commander of the Dearborn Allied War Veterans Council, past Dearborn Veteran of the Year, brethren.
Damn.
And
blah 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 blah.
I
blah,
can't
right?
keep going. He's got
That's a lot of hats, man.
He's got way more hats than that. We'll get into that in a second.
All right.
But before we get into anything, we always thank our Patreon members. I want to thank our Patreon members because without your donations, we couldn't do what we do. Bring our stories every Sunday evening for the whole world to hear. I want to thank our show sponsor, Proven Valor Professionals, Jeffrey Savins, and the fellas over there, always doing a great job. And I also want to thank my daughter for making me a grandfather today.
Hey, congratulations.
I have a little sneak peek here.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Oh.
Beautiful little baby.
Gorgeous.
I'm not supposed to show these yet, but this is this episode will go live in 2 weeks, so I'm good to go.
Nice. That's why I was surprised you were even going to do the show, with it happening.
Well, so my daughter moved back to Michigan, so we're in Tennessee. We're probably going to head up to Michigan to meet our little granddaughter on Monday.
Nice.
Man, that's so weird, man. You're a grandfather. That's just so weird coming out of my mouth.
First time grandfather, man.
Dude, you're too young to be a granddad. You really are. You're way too young to be a granddad.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of grandparents a lot younger than me. I'm getting up there.
I'm not used to that. I'm not used to that.
All right. Well, today we're with Army veteran Gary Tanner. Hey, Gary, what was the rank that you achieved while in the Army?
I got promoted to E5, but it never caught up to me. So technically, E4 Specialist 4. I received my promotion to E5 and my paperwork and all that stuff, but I ETS before it all got completed. So,
right on. So what we do is we catalog our guest stories before, during, and what you're doing afterwards. So you joined the United States Army. How old were you when you joined the Army, and why did you choose the Army other than, Coast Guard or the Navy or the Marine Corps?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, my father was in the Army, so that weighed a lot when I made my decision. But basically, I took the ASVAB test like we all did back then and scored very high, and I could pretty much pick what I wanted to do. So
nice.
One day I went to the recruiting stations and I just kind of went door to door and said, look, here's my scores. Here's kind of what I want to do. What can you offer me? And what can you give me? And pretty much everybody was, right around the same, except the Army offered me a $12,000 signing bonus on top of it. So I was like, done,
Heck yeah.
Plus Pappy was was an Army guy. So, had to follow in his footsteps. And so I chose the Army and I went in and did satellite communications work for them for our nuclear missile systems. The Pershing II system was the one we were tasked with setting up. So,
damn, nice.
It was awesome.
That's a cool MOS.
It was.
Did they give you that $12,000 in a lump sum, or they break it up over a year, or how's that work?
Well, they gave it to me. They added it to my college money, basically. I didn't get to spend it cash, but I mean, eventually I used it by going to school. So
yeah, that's cool.
It worked out for the better doing it that way. I probably would have blew it on something. Yeah.
They don't do bonuses or anything. You gotta re-enlist to get your bonus.
Right. And it was kind of funny. I mean, not to blast anybody, but I went that day to the Air Force too, because I was really kind of looking at the Air Force, and the guy was sitting there reading a magazine, and I said, can you talk to me? He goes, make an appointment. Okay. Have a nice day.
That sounds like the Air Force.
And I walked away and, never went back. I mean,
dude, those guys are like in Murfreesboro, those guys are never there. Yeah. Ever. You got to take a card and make an appointment, just like what happened with you.
Right. So I said, well, if you don't want to talk to me, then, I'm sticking with my first choice. So
you know what a sailor would do at $12,000 cash? You know
You'd
how many
buy a
hookers
lifetime supply of Slurpees, dude, right?
Hookers, lots of hookers.
you can get in Taiwan for 12?
Exactly.
Yeah, $12,000 to turn into $12 million of medical bills.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Oh man.
Reason why he says Slurpees because all the guys at the Legion always give me shit because we had like Slurpee machines, ice cream machines. We had
You
up
had
on
a
the Chow
Slurpee?
decks.
Wait, wait, wait,
Oh
wait,
yeah.
wait, 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 wait,
We were
wait.
laying
Soda
in the mud.
machines.
He's eating soft serve, you know.
You guys had a Slurpee machine
Yeah,
at your
ice soft
American
serve ice
Legion?
cream. We had it all, man.
No, on
Are
his
you?
aircraft carrier.
The aircraft carriers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's
Oh
why
my!
the year he took over after me, I made a special gavel out of I found a container of bubbles that
Yeah,
looked like an ice cream cone.
Did you have
And
it?
I
Fleet,
think
you
and I
still
made
got
it.
it?
I still have it.
Yeah, and I made it as his gavel, and then his commander's mug, we got a huge Slurpee cup from 7-Eleven and doctored it up and gave it to him.
Yeah.
So it was pretty fun. He was a good sport about it. So
That's
So
funny.
when you were in the Army, where'd you go to boot camp and where'd you go after that?
I went in. I went to Fort Leonard Wood down in Missouri, or
Oof,
we
lost
called
in
it
the
Fort
woods.
Lost in the Woods. Yeah,
Yes,
in the state of
sir.
Missouri.
Yes, sir.
So I did my basic training down there and finished up. Came back for a short leave and then went down to Fort Gordon for my advanced training and went through the radio teletype course, the 31 Charlie course down there. And then once I finished that course, then that was a prereq for the SATCOM. Then they sent me over to SATCOM school and learned how to be a SATCOM operator and worked in mobile SATCOM rigs that were either on the back of a deuce and a half or airlifted in. And I finished that down there a little bit early and came back home and did a little bit of recruiting duty, which was kind of a funny story because my sister was due to get married at that time, and I was supposed to get shipped overseas. And so my sister wrote a letter to the president, basically saying, "Hey, I want my brother in my wedding." And one night I get called into the commander's office, and
Oh
she
my
was
God.
asking me what this was all about. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. She goes, I just got a letter from the undersecretary of the army. Who are you? What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sure I have no idea, ma'am. I don't know anything. And so somehow I wound up with 60 days recruiting duty. So I was able to be in her wedding and worked at the local recruiting station
Wow.
and then shipped out after that. So it was kind of funny, but enjoyed it. It was good. Got to go back to the old schools and show off the uniform and the new body and all that kind of stuff. And so it was good duty. I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
And then
That's-
after that, they shipped me overseas to Germany and went into the 56th Field Artillery Brigade Pershing. And our job was basically they had the P-1A missile system in the field at that time and had it, for quite some time, probably back 60s, 70s was when that one was made operational. And our task was to get the Pershing 2 up and operational because the Pershing 2 had a longer range. We could hit Moscow directly from Germany where we couldn't with the P1As. It had the inertial guidance system, so we could fire it anywhere where the P1A was point and shoot. The accuracy was about 50 feet after it flew to Moscow versus, the P1A, just hoping it gets close. And so once we got that up and operational, shortly after that, the Soviets came back to the table and said, "Let's talk," and they signed the INF treaty, and that basically ended the Cold War. And shortly after that, then the unit was deactivated and made back into a normal field artillery unit, first of the ninth, and then they destroyed our missiles, and I was reassigned at that point to the third Armored Cavalry, and finished out my time with them as fire direction and basically working for the troop executive officer, doing all the target acquisition, fire direction, equipment status, that kind of stuff.
With the Persian, that's a pretty sweet ass name.
It was, yeah, it was named
I like
after
that.
General Blackjack Pershing, and so we got to do a lot with them, and they were basically tested out of Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and they did a lot of firings out of White Sands and
Yeah, I was going
things
to
like
ask,
that to
did you
test
ever get
them.
a
But
chance to test fire one?
I didn't particularly because I wasn't a missile crew member. Some
Yeah.
of the missile crew members would rotate back and get to see those off of down by Cape Canaveral. They would launch them out over the ocean, and with us, with the being support, we didn't get to go and attend those things. But um, we had 9 missiles, live on pad 24/7 at our combat sites around Europe, and we had 3 in Germany. And so we would go out and we'd do 3 months duty at a time. Each battalion would get sent out there for 3 months. You'd get locked into a little base that was probably about the size of maybe a golf course if you were lucky. Not even. You had a big inflatable gym and a admin building and a barracks, and then your launch pads, and that was about it out in the middle of the woods. And so you would do 24/7 out there for 3 months, and then you'd come back to the rear, and then 6 months out of the year we'd be training with NATO and the other countries in NATO to do our nuclear tactical evaluation training and make sure that we were certified through NATO and part of the nuclear strike force. So
Damn.
So all this technology, man, if we're talking, if I had to guess, this is more than 40 years ago, because I know I've been out for
right.
almost
Yeah,
40
this
years.
is
Long
yeah.
time. Long time,
Yeah.
Flake. You've been
So
out
that's
for a
4
long time.
decades, and that's some pretty killer technology. I could only imagine what they have today that they're not telling us about. You know what
Oh,
I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah, and I had to read into all the security clearance. I had the top secret clearances and equivalent with our battalion commander, because anything that came through from the Pentagon, we had to deliver and see, and so we had to read into the same clearances and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a pain after a while. You got kept having to go through this clearance, training and this clearance training,
Yeah.
and but made sense in the end. But it was a different time back then. We don't get to pick
Yeah.
what happens after we sign that dotted line, but it was pretty tense for a while, and we did patrols on the Czech border. We'd go up and support the second Cav, so they get a little bit of break and patrol Czechoslovakian border. And as far as the government was concerned, that didn't happen. Anything that happened along that border, if we took rounds, it didn't happen. They didn't want to have any kind of provocation. So, but it was interesting duty watching, what was going on in the world. And supposedly they were working on the fence line, and the Czechs had, mines up on the fence line that were facing in, but they were supposedly to protect from us coming in. It was more to keep their people in at that time, East German and Czech borders. And so eventually they had to demine it, and we'd have to go up and observe them. And that's where some of those patrols would come in, and they didn't like it. And so every once in a while they would take pot shots at us and our aircraft and helicopters and things like that. So they were not happy we were there, but
So
it worked
that was
out.
like back in the day when Bill Murray crossed into Czechoslovakia.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
probably. I
Hey,
think I passed him on the way
hey,
out one day.
I like Stripes, man. That's a
That
good
Yeah.
movie.
That was a funny movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you didn't toe the line, man, you got the spatula treatment. So
Army training, sir.
yeah.
Did you ever get a chance to cross over into Czechoslovakia?
Y- yes and no. Officially no,
But yeah.
but yeah, it was a different time. We couldn't go into Berlin either with our clearances. They were considered too much
Yeah.
of a security risk. So
The wall was still up at that point, right?
yes, yep.
Whoa.
So and yeah, so it was different. I played soccer when I was over there too, as part of a German team and a military team, and one of the teams we made it to playoffs that were going to be held in Nuremberg and then eventually into Berlin, and a bunch of us couldn't go with the team, when they went to play in Berlin just because of the clearances. So the team wound up losing. We had like half the team that had top secret clearances. So, but other teams, we got to represent the United States in the Allied Friendship Games over there, which was kind of the military equivalent of the Pan Am Games or the Olympics. It was pretty cool getting to meet people from all around the world, that were in the military for their countries and allies of ours, and kind of communicate as best we could and share stories. And it was and some uniforms, switched out hats and jackets and things like that, and patches. And so it was kind of a good time, once in a while. But other times it was pretty crazy. That was when Gaddafi was popping off a lot, and so they
Yeah.
deployed us out when we took out his complex over in Libya, and we went out to mate warheads, and they would always send us out separate. The warheads would be sent out ahead of time, and then the missiles would meet up at a mating point that was secret, and mate the warheads so that the two never traveled together. So if one was compromised, they couldn't use it against us, basically.
Smart.
Excellent. So I'm going to tell this story real quick. When I was in the American Legion back home, we used to do quite a bit of fundraisers and stuff. So
Absolutely.
I just got this great idea, man. There's this boat in Wyandotte, so I didn't rent it. I headed it up. We rented this party boat in Wyandotte, Michigan. We cruised the Detroit River, and I told Gary that all the money was going to go to his fund. And so we get all set up on this boat. There's probably 40 or 50 people on this boat, and
Yeah, easy.
one of the young girl that was working it, she comes over. She say, "Hey, what's this all about?" Because she knew it's like a nonprofit fundraiser. And I said, "Yeah, my buddy over there, man, he's running this program, this great program for wounded returning warriors." I always
Yeah, it was the
say
Michigan
wrong.
Wounded Returning Warrior Program. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and she was like, "Oh man, that's cool. I'm gonna have to tell my brother about this because he was supposed to get married, but then he shipped out to Iraq. I think was it that
It was
long
Afghanistan.
ago?
Yeah.
Afghanistan,
Yep.
and he got hit, and he never got a chance to go on his honeymoon. And so we took that money, and Gary Tanner sent him on his honeymoon that weekend. It was awesome.
Yeah, he called up, and we were able to get the hotel that was working with us up there. And because when we started the program up, it was kind of a what if program, and all of a sudden it was, next thing you know, we had everybody coming on board with us, the Mackinac Island Tourism Bureau, and so one of the hotels on the island has been just way generous, the Murray Hotel, and its manager Mar Pulte contacted her and kind of explained what was going on, and she's like, "Yeah, we'll set them." Normally, we would do a 3-day, 2-night retreat for most of our retreats through the program for these families, and she goes, "Yeah, we'll set them up for at least a week." We gave them $1,000 spending money out of the program, set them up with dinner and shows at the Grand Hotel on the island and different venues, and uh, but his sister, when we started talking, she goes, "Yeah, like Rich said, he was supposed to go on his honeymoon when he got back. Of course, 2.5 years afterwards, through all this physical therapy and medical surgeries and things, they never got a chance to go on their honeymoon yet." And I said, "Well, we send them to different places." I said, "One of the places we send them is Mackinac Island." And she just kind of froze. And she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "That's where they wanted to go on their honeymoon." And I'm like, "You're kidding me." It was just like, it was too much, too cool, how everything fell into place. But they went up there, they had an amazing time. We were able to close that loop for them after 2.5 years, give them a nice honeymoon that they deserved. And it was totally just by happen chance with this young lady working there. And it was really, it shows you there's a bigger plan at work than us. We're just the
Yeah.
instruments, we're just the tools and the
Amen,
conduits,
baby.
but
Amen.
but there's a bigger plan at work, and that just proved it.
Yeah, that was I mean, we always had a fun time and great turnout, but to hear stories like that, it's like, oh my God, this is exactly why we do what we do. It's just,
Absolutely.
so when I try to talk to people about joining the VFW and the American Legion, they're like, "Well, I don't drink, or I don't want to sit in a bar." Well, it's not always about getting drunk and sitting in a bar.
Yep.
We do a lot of great things.
Exactly.
Yeah, and our post back in Dearborn, like yours there, I mean, it was one of the most active posts in the area, and we did a lot in the community. We were involved with the city and civic activities, but you still ask anybody around what the American Legion or the VFW was, and they said it's a place to drink and tell war stories.
Exactly.
And
Well, yeah.
and so 45 minutes later, educate them on all the different things we do and the children and youth programs, and the benefits for returning warriors and families, and
Yep.
everything else. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And that's the problem, is we're a lot of times our own worst enemy, because we don't do it for the accolades. We don't do it to get an attaboy. We do it because it's our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We don't leave them behind on a field. We don't leave
Exactly.
them behind after we get home. And so we do it for different reasons. But a lot of times we don't advertise what we do to the public
Right.
because of that. And then when we go to them for support,
Yeah, we just assume.
we're a place to drink and tell war stories. So
Yeah.
you got to tell your story once in a while. So I appreciate you having me on,
Oh, yeah.
and appreciate what you guys do every week,
Dude,
with your
we
program.
love hearing your stories, man. And you've been in the American Legion for a long time, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
How long?
yeah. Just about almost. I think it's 30 years this year for me.
Whoa,
Yeah.
man.
So and I belong to a lot of different organizations. I joined every one that I could join because of the membership. Even if I can't participate actively,
Me too.
it's just you got to keep the numbers strong for Congress, and when they go testify on
That's
Capitol
one of
Hill.
the big things, man.
That
The
is.
VFW, especially, you got to.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we're under 1 million. We're at 942,000 people, and
Yep.
1.5 million sounds better than 942,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the American Legion. I mean, we used to be up over 3 million, 4 million.
How many? What's
We're
the number
sliding
now?
down now. I think we're down in the twos.
Okay.
And it's a lot of people when and it's a generational thing. Like Rich said, a lot of the younger vets, um, their world revolves around these things,
Yeah.
Yep.
and if they can't find it in 5 minutes on their phone or on
They
the
go
computer,
crazy.
they're not interested.
They're not interested. Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you ask them to come to a meeting, what's in it,
What's in it for me?
why do I have to go to a brick and mortar place, And so we actually toyed with the idea. In fact, back when Rich was still in town, we talked about starting a virtual post too, if you remember,
Yeah.
for a while there, just to see,
Oh,
at
that's
least we
a
could
good idea.
get the members, with especially now with this whole pandemic, the virtual meetings have really played out and made business and everything else a lot more efficient.
Dude, that
I'm
could
able to join you guys
Oh,
Yeah.
that
without
could
being down
work.
there.
That
So
would work.
I'm sorry, that's a great idea. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, now we have all this Zoom stuff now, and
yeah,
the
yeah,
cooties are doing Zoom meetings, and we even
absolutely.
have an open Zoom meeting when we have our actual meeting.
Yep.
But that's actually a really good idea.
Yep. And that's like the last 2 years now, this year and last year, I'm the commander at our local DAV post, or DAV chapter in Dearborn. And we just, I went in there trying to get the building up to code, or not up to code, but up, our code,
Yeah.
and into the 20th century. They didn't have internet. They didn't have anything, in there to be able to use. So now we have high speed internet. I got that in there. We're going to start doing video conferences for our meetings, so that, because a lot of our membership, when I joined in, I'm 58 right now, and I'm the kid. We just now
Okay.
started getting some younger members to join, but most of the membership is 80 years and older, and a lot of them don't live nearby anymore. A lot of them just can't travel. But if we could get people to help them out, or have their family members
Yeah.
set up a Zoom thing for them, they can participate. So we're going to start doing that, and put up a big screen up in the front of the room, so that people can kind of, you can see faces, and if they want
Oh,
to,
that's a great
um,
idea, man. Damn,
yeah,
I like that.
trying
I
to
really like that.
see what we can do for it. And we've been trying to court the student veterans always, through all the
Yeah. We
organizations.
do
But
that also here.
there's, for whatever reason, it just, they were very skittish about joining. We finally got them to be part of the Dearborn Allied War Veterans Council that we have in our city here. We have the Student Veterans of America at the local colleges and universities. So we got them now to show up and be part of that organization, and to kind of be a little bit more stakeholder in the future. And so we're trying to do the same thing, with the American Legion, with the DAV, with all the organizations. VFW is, if they can come in and do some homework, do some claims, do something
Yeah.
productive that they need. And a lot of them today, it's different. That they're not really interested in the drinking or the bars.
Right.
That doesn't draw them in like it used to. What draws them in is community service,
Yep.
getting out and being active in the
Big
community
time.
and doing things. That's the big draw right now. And so if you're not active as a post or a chapter or any organization in the community, you're going to dwindle and wither and die.
Yeah.
So that's where we're kind of aiming, with a lot of that stuff now.
Definitely have to evolve.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
VFW, they're trying to change that as well. I mean, I I'm the state chaplain. I'm VFW, like
Yeah.
I'm American Legion too, but I know more about the VFW than I do about my own American Legion.
Hmm.
And I was wondering if you could do us a favor. I mean,
Absolutely.
um, I know the VFW stuff. What what makes the American Legion? What makes it pop? Like, what do you guys
Well,
do that's different from the VFW, or the same, or
we
what are
do a lot of this.
your
We do
what
a
are
lot
your
of the same.
benefits?
We do a lot of the same. The history, I mean, it started right after World War One. The VFW was an older organization than
1899.
ours, but we started right after the Paris Accords with the purpose of taking care of the veterans that were going to be returning that maybe lost a limb, had issues, post traumatic stress, even though it wasn't labeled and diagnosed, making sure that they had a way to go when they got back home. And so the American Legion was the one that founded the original GI Bill of Rights. They helped author that and actually helped found the VA itself through what they had worked with, set up a Veterans Administration. They also founded the VA Home Loan Program and a lot of other things like that through the years. And so our big emphasis, at least here in Michigan, we're primarily Guard and Reserve. We don't have an active duty base like a lot of states do. The soldiers and service members and sailors and Marines, they're all embedded in the communities for the Guard and Reserves. We do have active duty veterans in the state, but we had to take a different tack, and so we kind of tailored most of our stuff here in the state towards the Guard and Reserve. More so than the active military, just because they don't have that support structure that other states can provide like that for their service members and their families. So the American Legion is big into children and youth too. I know the VFW is as well. You've got a lot of similar contests with the Patriots Pen, and
And the
we've got
voice of democracy, and
yep,
yeah, okay,
those kind of things. We've got the oratorical contest, 7 minutes speeches on the Constitution.
wow,
In fact, we had just had a young man here from Ann Arbor that wound up going to our Boys State program, which they learn how to run a state from the governor down. They self-elect through themselves, no outside pressure. They just basically have the mentors to teach them how the legislature is run, but they decide amongst themselves who's elected. He wound up being elected uh, at Boys Nation as the Boys Nation president this past year, and really did well. And a lot of people, programs like that. We have shooting sports. We have programs that help with financial needs for children and youth funds. We have a lot of different programs that we can bring. Baseball, American Legion baseball. We're working on American Legion softball
well, you
for
guys
the.
had the American Legion World Series,
We do.
Yeah.
Yep.
and that
And
was in Shelby, North Carolina, right?
correct. Yep.
And it's funny because the color guard for 4 days of that was our adopted JROTC unit
There
that
you go.
we've adopted from for our VFW.
Yep.
And Colonel Gaylord, he was showing me all of his awards he got.
Nice.
And were you down there for the
I did
baseball
not get
tournament?
to go to it. No, I watched it virtually, but I did not get to go. So,
Okay.
and then we, as you mentioned, we through the American Legion would support the ROTC programs around the state too, and present them with different medals that they could wear on their
Yep.
uniforms for scholastic achievement, military achievement, all those kinds of things. So we'd usually attend their military gala or ball at the end of the year and
Yeah.
present these awards, and
Yeah.
so a lot of similarities. Biggest difference here in Michigan is the programs that I founded. They don't exist in the other states.
Now
Unless
for our listeners, now the American Legion, what are the prerequisites to be a Legionnaire? I mean, I know.
originally you had to be in during the prescribed wartime eras, all the way through from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Lebanon, Grenada, and on forward. Last year, I believe it was, or year before, and now I'm losing track, but they passed the Trump Act, and so 2 years ago, and that opened it up from everyone that has served from December 7th, 1941 to present. So anybody can now join if they've been in the military and served one day at least honorably under active duty. They can join the American Legion now, and so that's helped the membership quite a bit as well. And a lot of people that weren't eligible before are now eligible
Are
to
now
join.
eligible. That's
Yep, and they opened up this a couple years back. They opened up the auxiliary to all spouses instead of, because it had kind of been like the women's auxiliary for all the years,
yeah.
but we
VFW was
started
kind of
having
like
more
the
and
same
more
way.
female veterans, and so a lot of the veteran spouses were male, and there wasn't an organization dedicated to male spouses versus female spouses. So now they've opened up the auxiliary to any spouse.
And the
Um,
VFW, yeah, the VFW did pretty much very similar things.
mhm,
And I'm the veteran, and the husband is actually in the auxiliary. So
absolutely.
it's a coming of change.
Yep,
And I don't
it
know.
is.
I don't know. I've got to ask. Do you get as much drawback of change, like changes going
Oh,
on in?
believe
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Rich will tell you. One year, just
That's
as
why
an
I'm
Okay.
laughing.
example,
No, I had to make that clear
yeah,
because
one
change
year as an
sucks.
example at our post, I mean, we had a legal office that was downsizing, and they called up and they said, "Hey, we want to donate a bunch of computer equipment, printers, faxes, and I mean, these were top notch, 36-inch laser jet plotters. The fax machines were, commercial grade and all that kind of stuff, and the laser jet printers, just like you'd have in an office building. So we went and we picked it up, and we were talking about putting in an internet cafe at our post at that time
Mhm.
because there were still a lot of people deployed, and we had a group called the Michigan Military Moms that was a big part of our post and fabric in our community, and so we thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity. They can, Skype and Zoom and whatever with their kids. They can, when they come back, people can work on claims, they can work on resumes, whatever the case. I was doing a lot of printing jobs for all of our, uh, I guess, fundraisers, special events, printing out these big, like 24 by 36-inch posters and stuff to hang on the walls. And, my company was fine with it. My boss at the time, he didn't mind. He knew what it was going for. But I thought, wow, we got our own now. We can do it in house. We can set this up, and we had, I think it was the first router that got put in for our Wi-Fi wound up being
Yeah.
taken home by somebody. And then after we got all that equipment donated, it sat in the garage, and I think probably a year or two later they sold it on Craigslist for like pennies on the dollar. And I was just like, you know, and they're like, well, we don't use that stuff. And I said, well, no, you don't, but the next generation
Yeah.
does. And if you don't, offer them what they need, you're not going to get them to join. You've got to be flexible. But the special events were kind of geared towards, you know, what they liked and not what the new people might like. And so we tried to have like a Guitar Hero contest one time, and that we got a lot of pushback from that. And some of the things that were going on. There was one American Legion post out in San Francisco that actually started right after 9/11, and it was, ironically enough, the post number was 9/11, but it wasn't affiliated with 9/11. It just happened to be random. But they joined. They were all OAF vets and their families. They wound up getting about 900 members by advertising through the gaming platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, all that stuff. So when the little ads popped up, it was them, and
Whoa,
they started doing, climbing
900?
over 900 members the first year. Yep, and they wound up, setting up, and it was great because it was family driven to where, the vets were joining, the spouses were joining the auxiliary, the kids were joining the sons and the junior auxiliary. They were offering trips, dinners,
Oh my God.
get-togethers. They were going rock climbing, doing, some what we would say, I guess, type A activity and more dangerous and exciting stuff, skydiving and things. And this
Man, that
post
puts
just
my numbers to shame.
it just took off. It was crazy. No, but I mean, it put all our numbers to shame. I mean, it was just, but it was a unique idea, and they advertised where the veterans were,
Yeah.
and they came, and so it's all about the message. Because when I started this program back, first started a program called the L Mobility Room. We had Sesame workshops that offered up 30 rooms nationally, and we're going for military bases or organizations that directly supported the military, and they wanted them set up kind of like a family lounge was their vision of it, where they could put these decals on the wall, and it was about $10,000 worth of books and toys and videos and furniture, all related to Sesame workshops and Sesame Street. And so they contacted me from headquarters here and said, you might be interested in this because they're going to give 5 away to the American Legion nationally. And I put together a proposal. I sent it in. We were one of the 5 departments that was chosen to receive one. And so I decided I would make it mobile because we're all guard and reserve. How do I decide one armory over the next who's going to get this room? So they called and asked for pictures. I said, well, I don't have pictures. And I said, and you might want to take it back, and I understand if you have to, but here's what we're doing. They absolutely loved it. They're like, oh my God, this is so out of the box. They sent us decals for the trailer, huge things to put on, extra boxes to give to the units for our first visits to leave behind. And so that went really good. And then the next year, we started a program called the Patriot Fund because we had a lot of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that were being deployed. They hadn't yet gone to their deployment, but they were being sent to the mobilization training out in California, New Jersey, wherever, for 2 months. And everybody knows you don't get rich in the military. So immediately they'd go under financial duress and come back, and they'd be a month or so behind in their rent. Nobody would help them because they didn't deploy yet. They didn't have kids, so they weren't meeting any of the requirements of the pre-existing aid programs. So we started the Patriot Fund up with some help with a local hardware store here in Michigan that had about 60 or 80 stores around the Metro Detroit area. And they collected over $10,000 for us that first year to start the corpus of that fund. And we grew that program to be the only program in the state for a while that would help non-wartime veterans with the same emergent needs that wartime veterans were having, because they weren't getting any help either. And then the following year, we started the Michigan Wounded and Returning Warrior program. Same way, ACO offered to do financial collections for us in their stores. We started with about $20,000, and over the course of time now, we've raised over $1.5 million. We give 100% of it away because we're all volunteer vets. So we don't take anything out. The American Legion builds the admin costs into the committee budgets, that are overseen to create these programs.
Hey Gary,
So
what's the name of that Michigan Returning Warriors?
Michigan Wounded and Returning Warrior program.
Sorry,
So
I've got a buddy in Warren,
yeah,
Michigan.
yep.
He was trying to get help. He's trying to get his disability and I don't know. I mean, he can't really get in touch with a VSO in Michigan, and I gave him the numbers, but nobody was picking up. And I gave him one of my VSOs down here in Tennessee that Fleek knows.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually my VSO, but for anyone that's going through any of that stuff, like wanting to increase their disability rating,
Yep.
who should they get in touch with?
They can do 2 things. They can either go to our website, which is www.michiganlegion.org. Excuse me. And then on the menu icon, there's the little dash lines. When they go down to services, there's a choice for locate a service officer in your county or in your area.
Okay.
So that'll list all the service officers and where they work. They can also contact me, and Rich has my contact information.
Okay.
I'll help direct them to a service officer, contact the service officer for them, make the introduction. They can also, just go to one of the VA facilities here in the state and ask to see a service officer. And most of the service officers for all the different organizations will have certain office hours at all the VA facility offices or offices very near to the
Okay.
VA facilities.
No,
So,
thank you. I served with a couple guys from Michigan. Warren, oh, man, there's like 3 different towns that they were
Mhm.
from, and one of them actually was a machine gunner with me, and now he's a counselor in
oh, okay.
Dave Lowe. If you've ever heard the name, he's supposed to be a counselor. I can't remember what town he's in.
Okay.
Is it
But-
is it around the Detroit area?
It's definitely around the Detroit area. Because I remember I've been to Detroit once, and then I went to some strip club in Ohio, like an hour away, and that was my Detroit trip. Okay, that was memorable. I will tell you that.
There you go.
But thank you,
But-
I appreciate it. This
Oh,
will
no
definitely
problem.
help him out.
Yep. And the other thing they can always do too is because a lot of times people are skittish about either going to the VA medical facilities or contacting the service organizations, but the vet
Yeah.
centers around the state also, they can go in there and talk to accredited counselors, and they don't crosstalk with the VA at all, or the military units that they're associated with. And so a lot of times they get a little more anonymity going in
Okay.
there. It's a little more comfortable, and they can also direct them. A lot of times the vet centers will have a service officer either connected with that vet center or be able to direct them there as well too.
Okay.
So
No,
so that's
appreciate
another
it.
option. Yep.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Actually, Fleek, do you have any more questions? Because I've got one.
You
I
go
mean,
ahead, man.
Maybe we can. What's the future of the American Legion right now?
Well,
What is going on? What's the 5-year plan for the American Legion now? Since you're a national officer, correct?
I'm not a national officer. No, I sit on a national committee for them,
Okay.
which basically, it gives me a cup of coffee for $3.50.
Nice.
But I
Coffee
get to
for-
participate in the some of the decisions that are made at the national level. The committee that I serve with is quality of life and family benefits under the military affairs committee, and the National Security Commission. So that's kind of where I am at the national level, just a peon, worker bee kind of thing. They did publish for a while 5-year plans for both the American Legion and the auxiliaries, and then they've kind of gotten away from that just because things were changing so rapidly. But the biggest thing that they're helping with and embracing is, one of the recent legislation victories, the PACT Act, right? And
Of course. Yes.
and so, that's going to be this generation's Agent Orange, and
And Blue Water
We've-
Navy, and yeah.
oh,
it's gonna be
absolutely.
huge,
Yeah. I mean, I've already lost one friend at the age of 41 to esophageal cancer from it.
I'm sorry.
And we've had some people here in Michigan that were very active in it, both in the Legion and the VFW side. And they were actually there in Washington when that was signed. So, but the American Legion has been embracing that. We've also been looking for alternative therapies and modalities for the post-traumatic stress through the Michigan Wounded and Returning Warrior program. We had 10 veterans that were alumni of the program, and some people from different parts of the country. But one of those veterans happened to run into Patch Adams. If you've ever seen the movie
Yeah.
Patch Adams with Robin Williams in Chicago, he was Ubering, and Patch gets in his cab and looks at him. He goes, "What's wrong with you?" And the guy's driving on. He's like, "What?" He goes, "What's wrong with you?" He goes, "What's wrong with me?" He goes, "You're the one in the back seat in clown gear." He goes, "What's wrong with you?" And so they hit up this conversation, and he realized, he was telling him about the humanitarian clowning, and he says, would that work for post-traumatic stress? And he says, well, I don't see why not. So we got together with Patch Adams and people out at the captain level Federal Healthcare Center in Chicago, and developed a program called Clown Vets, which the trailer and some information used to be, and I believe still is, on Facebook under Clown Vets if you just look that up. But they basically took these veterans out of the country to Guatemala at that time on 2 different trips to facilities that were like the hospitals, orphanages, places where their forgotten citizens were, and did this clowning, and they saw tremendous benefit, well above and beyond what we were seeing on clinical studies, and similar to the ecotherapy, and even above that. And so that we've developed a local program now called Warrior Clowns domestically, and we'll do clowning at VA homes, at for the veteran homes, at the VA hospitals, children hospitals, civic events, things like that people don't really think about.
Yeah.
But that modality was so powerful. Just putting it on a red nose, I mean, all of a sudden you're 5 again, and you have pretty much license to be silly and do anything you want.
Goofy,
And and the
goofy,
connection is just sharing pure love and compassion with another human being at that point. So
That's awesome.
these vets were, in 2.5 hours, I mean, we had the roughest from the combat medics all the way up dealing with this stuff. By the end of our 2.5 hour session, that combat medic was sitting on Patch Adams' knee singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow with him. And all of them at the end of the session were wearing their red noses and, laughing and smiling and saying, man, I can't remember the last time I had such a good time. I'm really glad I came today. And on the way in there, it was their typical posture. I don't want to be here. Just leave me alone. I want to get through this and get back to my room, But wow, was it powerful. And so we've been exploring things like that, doing the adaptive sports. We've got a lodge facility here in Michigan that's 1,200 acres with a 60 acres spring-fed lake.
Wow.
And we've got a 4-cabin facility with a big industrial day room kitchen type building that we call Veteran Village on the opposite side of the lake from the main housing facilities. And we'll do a lot of post-traumatic stress workshops up there and open it up to other groups to come in and hold theirs there. So anybody that's been in up here, especially if you're a wartime veteran, you can go on their website and look at their schedule and book a stay for free up there for the weekend with your family. They've got pontoon boats, they've got kayaks, canoes. You can go out in the water. There's bald eagles nesting on the property, and tons and tons of wildlife. And they've also dedicated over 120 acres to the scouts, and
Nice.
made a scout camp. And they've started doing these, I don't know, like a jamboree kind of thing, but at the council level, and camporees, and invited all these different troops from around the state to come up and be a part of it. And it's been really successful so far. We've also started sponsoring Eagle Scouts here in Michigan. They do a big celebration that honors all the Eagle Scouts from that year, and they'll do it in different locations around the state, like in Novi for us, and Grand Rapids, and places like that. And so each scout would come in with their family if they want to. They participate in this event, get a little final recognition. It's a nice night, and we hook them up with mentors in the industry. So we find out what kind of career they're interested in. Try to get them some contacts and business cards, and work with
Sounds
these mentors.
familiar, Flake.
Yeah. So when they get done with their college, they've got a contact in the industry that they can come back and say, hey, I was your mentor. And it's been real popular. And we developed a nice challenge coin for the Eagle Scouts to give out after each event. And so it's kind of getting back to its roots, because the American Legion, the very first outside organization that it partnered with after it started in 1919, was the Boy Scouts of America. And they saw the value of that program and what it gave back to the youth and the community. And so that was the very first organization that joined the partnership under the organization in 1919. So we've been with them ever since, and we sponsor Boy Scout troops throughout the state and Cub Scout packs and things like that. And so it's been really, really, you know, kind of an adventure. I mean, when we first joined and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen at the local post, and then, you know, go to a state convention as a nobody, is just as a little post commander, and you walk out and the state commander's like, you're my chairman for this year for this, and you got a year. And if you don't do anything with this program, we're getting rid of it. We don't see the relevance of it anymore. And so 13 years later, you know, and $1.5 million and all these different programs, it was, uh, you know, quite an amazing journey,
Yeah.
you know, to do a what if program. And we had the Michigan Psychological Association trying to create a similar program at the time. They actually applied for, we had Art Van Furniture up here for a long time, and Art Van had these philanthropic grants that people could apply for. And they had actually just got denied a grant that they had applied for. And they contacted us, and I said, well, that's kind of funny. I said, we've got money, but we don't have the program matured yet. And they said, well, we've got kind of a pretty mature program, but we don't have the money. So we literally met at a Tim Hortons restaurant in Dearborn right around Thanksgiving that first year, and did the, you know, even though people laugh at it, but kind of drew it out on a napkin and said, this is kind of what we want to do and how we want the program to work. And they started doing all of our clinical side of the program. And, you know, it's been great ever since. Mackinac Island, like I said, the Murray Hotel, Mark called me a week after we had sent a letter up to Mackinac Island to the Tourism Bureau. And literally within, I think it was maybe 3 hours, they had responded back, yes, 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 we're in. And then a week later, I get a phone call from Mark Pulte at the Murray saying, we'd like to donate 2 3-day, 2-night stays a month while we're open every month. They're open usually like May to October. And it's kind of the jewel of Michigan. If you've never been to Mackinac Island, it's really, you know, throwback to time. And there's no vehicle traffic on the island. It's all horse-drawn carriages, and you know, it's really cool.
Yep.
But she came on board and said, you know, we're going to donate that, all meals included, and she'll run around the island and knock the computer there. She'll run around the island and set up extra things like the shows and meals and do this all on her own. And all the ferry lines have comped all the families we sent up there and said, this is a great program. We want to participate. So they don't charge the families we send over. And so just a lot of things like that through the years. And we've got a lot of great organizations. The Building Construction Trade Council here in the state of Michigan partnered with us to, you know, benefit with the helmets to hard hats legislation. They can accelerate the journeyman process for the trade programs here in the state, get them vets into good jobs and careers. We've got a racing group that works with us now to take vets out in the cars on road courses and get them a little adrenaline rush and raise money for the program and have a good time. Bowling associations, I mean, you name it. And all these different organizations see the value in what we do. And it's all based off in-kind donations. We have no renewable funding source. We don't get any kind of government agency funding or VA funding, or it's just people writing us a check saying we believe in you. And so it's been really, really something to see it grow. It took a long time to get some traction and finally, you know, kind of get going. But now everybody's seeking us out to partner with us and work with us, and it's pretty rewarding. And
awesome.
the people
That's
that you get to meet, you know, that's the true reward for the program is to be honored to meet and get to know all these, you know, quiet heroes around the state. Even though I know we all don't like using that term, but you know, all these people that signed that blank check, you know, and they've all got a story and they've all got, you know, some pretty cool things about their service to share. And that's been the biggest and the best reward out of doing what I do is getting
sure.
to meet all the people
If,
that I interact with.
If you got any recommendations for our show, please let us know.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Send
Yep,
them our
we'll
way.
do. And
So,
I was just going to say, we were honored to not too long ago to do that legacy jump too. And that was pretty cool, doing a skydive with people from World War II all the way to current.
yeah,
That was a big deal and a big big honor to meet those individuals.
Yes. That's
That's
pretty
awesome, man. Well,
Cool.
Gary, thank you so much, man. Sorry, my wife just got home, and she just got home from the gym.
Well, we went
There you
over
go.
our 45 minutes anyways.
Yeah, like I said, we get together, we can talk hours. So
No,
Yeah, for sure.
you got a lot of good stuff going on in the great state of Michigan, man. I love it.
well, thanks, and you guys too. I mean, watching all the stuff that you guys are getting going down there, and the new post and how
We're
that's
trying,
just
man.
taking
We're
off.
trying.
And
We're trying to do our thing.
yeah,
And
no, you guys
that
are rocking
reminds
it.
me, keep a lookout on Friday evening, because after doing this podcast for 1 year, we're in the finals for the best veteran podcast.
That's
in
what
the
you were
frickin'
saying. That's
nation.
awesome, man. That's
National
congrats.
program too, man. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
Cross fingers. Cross fingers.
heck yeah, that's
Hey,
awesome.
worst case scenario, we're the second best in the country. So I'll hang my head on that
Hey,
any day of the week,
hey,
man.
we could be you could be the best Navy podcast too. Don't forget about that.
We're in
Right.
we're in two different categories. Best Navy and best overall veteran. So
There you
we're in
go.
the finals for both. So
That's awesome, man. You
I'll
guys are
take it
just
after 12
just
months.
killing it down there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thanks, Gary.
well,
Thanks, Commander Fleet.
congratulations. It's been an honor being on your show, and
Yes. Thank you.
really proud of all you're doing down there, brother. And
Likewise.
keep it up.
Yes, and spread the word about TSP up there, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's get some of your guys on here.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right,
a lot more
guys.
interesting people than me up here for sure.
I don't know. That was pretty interesting.
That was pretty damn interesting, man. Come on now.
I mean, you didn't
So-
jump out of an airplane going Mach 1, but it was pretty cool.
No,
you-
that's I didn't do that, but
we had that guy on. It was awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. That's
We're
all
gonna
right.
cut her loose.
Well, congratulations again on the new grandbaby, and
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
and let me know if there's ever anything I can do again. Be
Yes,
happy
sir.
to be on again if you need me.
All right. Thanks
Thanks
for
a lot, guys.
Thanks for
All right.
everything, guys.
Have a
Yep.
good
Take
night.
care. Have a good night.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
guys.